to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
Hi, Ebro, Laura Rosenberg. Andrew Yang is back on the program, the conversation I've been waiting for. Hey, Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Ebro. It's great to see you all.
Good to see you too, man. I've been trolling you and your team on Instagram for the last several weeks. But I've noticed I
haven't been on top of my own Instagram for a little bit.
I've noticed you've gotten more aggressive and more serious about the topics, and the whole tone of the mayoral race in the last few weeks has gotten more serious than several months ago when you were just, you were kind of game show hosty. I'm giving out 1,000 and you get money, and I plan to give this one money and that one money. But I feel like you've been forced to deal with some of these more serious topics in the forefront on social media. Is that true?
Well, it's a really tough time here in New York City. I mean, we all know it. We can feel it. I'm a dad. I've got 2 boys who are 8 and 5. One of my wife, Evelyn's mom friends got punched in the face weeks ago. So you can imagine the moms in our community responding to a picture of their friend's bruised face. So, I mean, things are really tough in New York. The shootings this past weekend, 2 people killed, 19 wounded. It's just a terrible, terrible time. And we have to get it under control. So, that's to me the number one concern on people's minds. Unfortunately, I mean, I wish it were otherwise.
It's interesting you bring up it's summertime in New York City and in our community and in our world every year. At this time, specifically in the summertime, violence in the streets is a real conversation that we've always been having. And it seems like more police has never fixed that. But you recently got an endorsement from the Captains Union. You've been talking about more police on the streets. What makes you think that more police can fix these problems?
We have underinvested in communities in ways big and small, and I want to do that. I think you all know that. I mean, I ran for president on, as you said, giving everyone $1,000 a month, which now doesn't even seem enough. But in the short term, we have to solve the shootings that are happening. And when you dig into the numbers, 2/3 of the shootings in Brooklyn are gang-related, and 3 out of 4 of them are going unsolved. So I want everyone to think about that for a sec. And you're right that it's not necessarily the case that having more cops on the streets would solve those crimes, because a lot of the time they're coming after the fact. But what we need to do is assign more detectives to the shootings so that we're solving more than 1 out of 4. Because if you can't solve the shootings, then the shootings are never going to come down. You have people who are shooting people and then still walking around, and that's all too common. So we have to take the resources that we have and utilize them more effectively. And I think everyone sees that what we're doing right now, it's not going to work. I'm for investing in communities. It was one example. I said we should fully fund the summer youth employment program so that every young person who wants a summer job gets it. Instead, right now,
they only do like 50%. Like every year, it's like there's 175 or 140,000 kids, whatever the number is, but they only give out 75,000 jobs.
That's right. And so if you're a family and you apply for that job, it's a roll of the dice. You can't count on whether your son or daughter is going to have a job. And then if they don't have a job, what are they going to do? So if someone wants a job in New York City, we should be giving it to them. The money's just going to go straight into a family's pocket, which, as you all know, I love. And it would improve public safety because more young people would be engaged throughout the summer during a time when, as you're saying, Ebro, crime's a bigger issue.
Andrew, when you talk about things like that, though, in this way, and you get the Captains Union, like, just to cut real turkey here, if that's a phrase.
It's not a phrase.
It might not be.
You just made it a phrase, Peter.
Thank you. This is going to lose you some progressives. Like, there are people who I think thought of you as a very progressive candidate, and as the election has gone on, have thought of you less and less that way. What do you say to people who see some of the big money endorsements you've gotten? They see the police captain's endorsement. They hear you talking about more police on the street, and they go, hey, as a progressive, this is not the candidate for me.
Well, I hope people see that I have a vision for how we can improve people's way of life. It does include cash relief and getting money into people's hands. It includes a people's bank. It includes strengthening our schools. It includes $1,000 for any family who has a child in public school and they're below the poverty line. But in the short term, we're looking at a city where shootings have gone up 100% year over year last year, and then are up another 70% this year. And it's hard to see how we can get those shootings down without involving the police. I'm going to talk about something that I think most people listening to this can relate to. Some people don't feel safe in the subways. And so what I've said is, look, we should have police officers on the subways, not just on the platform, but actually on the subway cars, just walking back and forth. And then you would see a cop and you would know that, okay, if there's any trouble on the subway, then there'll be a cop around. Now, some people might think that's a bad idea, but we have to find ways to restore a sense of confidence and safety on the subways, or the city's never going to be back at full strength.
I think the problem is the trust of police being able to do the job that you're asking them to do without bias. That's the real problem here.
Like, does this come with training? Like, we love the idea of more cops. If we could trust those cops to do that job, so are you also you also have a plan to train them better?
Yeah, and I want to recruit the 21st century police force. I was in Brownsville last week, and I talked to a guy in his front stoop, and then he said, "Hey, Yang, I'd like it if the cop that came around here was from my neighborhood and black." And I heard that. I said, yeah, that makes sense to me, because you'd feel less targeted on the basis of your race. And we should be going on a massive recruitment drive in Black and Latino and Muslim and Asian and Jewish communities, and of women, and try and make it so that our police force actually looks like the city. That would be an enormous step forward, I think, in reassuring people that when you see a police officer, like they look like you, or like they're. Oh, I also want all new police officers to live in the city, which I think would also help build those kinds of connections, because right now a lot of cops live outside the city and commute in.
So yeah, you become mayor, you get the job. How will police work for you? I think the last time we had you on the show, you said that you wanted a civilian commissioner, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that still, you still want that?
Yeah, I do. And I think that we have to help advance and evolve the culture of the NYPD, and cultures change from the top. And so if you have a civilian commissioner who's not an NYPD product, then I think the culture would change significantly under that person's leadership. And we have models for that in other environments, like at the national level. You have like a military branch that's commanded by a civilian. So this isn't new. And this is something that the captains don't agree with me on, but, I was very clear about this from the get-go. I mean, I've obviously made numerous statements to this effect. And so we have to be able to work with people that we may have a disagreement on. And I think that's part of the shift that we need to see in policing, where police officers would probably prefer a commissioner who was someone they knew, who was steeped in the NYPD culture. And if it's a different leader, then they'll dislike it at first, but I think it'll be really positive.
So why did the Captain's Union endorse you then? If they what's the actual win for them in standing behind you?
I was on the subway maybe a month and a half ago or so, and a Latina woman came up to me. She was wearing a sweatshirt, and then she lifted her sweatshirt, and underneath it was an NYPD badge. And I had the sense that she was doing something. like I didn't think she was off duty. I think there was something up. But she then leaned into me and said, "Andrew, we need someone to speak up for us, because right now no one believes in us. No one's speaking up for us." I think the captains endorsed me just because they think that I'll be an honest, trustworthy leader who won't agree with them on everything, but wants to work with them to help make the city safe. So the conversations I've had with the leadership, we definitely don't agree on a lot of things, but I think we developed like a respect and an understanding, and they want to help get the city city back on track. Like they feel, like that they want to help. A lot of police officers feel very strongly about what's happening in the city. One of them said to me, 1,000 New Yorkers are going to get shot this year between now and year end. And he said, like, that's unconscionable. Like, we have to do something about it. I also do want to make a comment. This is Eric Adams' old union. And so, these are people that knew
Eric Adams. Here we go.
Well, I'm just saying, put two and two together. Like these are the people that knew Eric Adams the best, worked with him for years, and they decided I was a better choice.
But I'm glad you made that transition, because Eric Adams accused you of having you follow him around to show that he doesn't live in New York, New Jersey.
The New Jersey story. I mean, you have to look at it and say, like, that's it's just a really it was like a surprising, interesting story to me. I'm sure it was to just about everyone. I mean, you assume someone lives in the city, and then it turns out that that might not have been the case with Eric for a while. I mean, again, like, New Yorkers can take a look at the facts. They can see the basement tour, and decide for themselves.
But you didn't deny. You didn't deny
what the accusation was.
Oh, wait, what was the accusation? I'm sorry about that, Ebro.
The accusation was that Eric Adams said that your team was following him around.
I think Politico went on the record and said that their journalists were following him around.
Got it. Okay.
Laura?
This is more aggressive. Oh, go ahead, Laura. I'm sorry.
Was this the same police union that endorsed Trump?
No, it was not, Laura.
Okay.
It was not. No. These guys endorsed Democratic candidates, in 2009 or 2013, one of those cycles.
Yeah, I read that Chris Monahan definitely did say that you guys did disagree on a lot of things, and I know you touched on some of it earlier, but I was just really curious as to see, like, what were some of the things besides the commissioner. What were some of the things that you guys disagreed on?
He doesn't like the fact that I want new cops to live in New York City. He thinks that's going to be a challenge, and I think it's an opportunity. I think having cops live in New York City would connect them with communities in a different way. Imagine cops who are commuting to work on the subway. They like put on their uniform and just like get on the subway and go to their precinct. Chris didn't like that idea. But we resolved that we don't see eye to eye on it, and that we'll continue to have conversations about it. So that's one thing we talked about. There are others as well. But we agree that New Yorkers deserve and expect not to have 1,000 of us shot, from now until the end of the year. We do have to turn this around, and they were looking for someone that they trusted, that they could work with, and I'm glad I represented that to them. I was also endorsed by the firefighters last week, and that was a similar type of conversation where they just want someone who's going to help protect the lives and families of New York.
Andrew, there was a lot of heat, including, it was a moment that I wasn't thrilled with when the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the most recent flare-up that we had a few weeks ago, happened. Your original statement was really one of solidarity with Israel. And in your original statement, you made no mention of the Palestinian people. I personally, as a Jewish American who cares deeply about the existence of Israel, but also believes strongly in the rights and the lives of Palestinians, I felt a little bit weird by you not acknowledging Palestinians in that statement also. Have you revised your thoughts on that, or what can you say about that statement?
Thanks, Peter. First, let me say that I've been enjoying seeing you on these A&E wrestling documentaries. Like, I watched a Macho Man one because it's like my favorite wrestler, and then you pop up and I'm like, hey, it's Peter.
Thank you very much. It's a claim to fame. Thank you.
Oh, no, I mean, shoot. I enjoyed it. On this much more serious topic, it's painful and tragic what's happened in the Middle East. I mourn for anyone who's lost their lives or been injured or feared for their family members. I'm just glad that peace has resumed right now, and that I'm optimistic that new leadership in Israel can hopefully lead to a sustained peaceful resolution. But it's just a tragic situation, and we all want people to be able to live and pray peacefully.
Do you struggle? It seems like it's hard for you, though. Like, do you worry that if you acknowledge too much about the lives of Palestinians, that the big Jewish vote in New York will not support you in the same way? Because that's, to me, and by the way, and I understand that I think it's ridiculous to some extent that mayoral candidates have to even speak on this issue, which will never impact the way you govern New York. But this is New York, and it is a big issue. But is that something that you're concerned about, that to express concern for Palestinians directly would upset certain people?
Well, to your point, Peter, I want to be a mayor for all New Yorkers. I visited mosques and synagogues over the last number of days. And we all want the same things for ourselves and our families. It is new to me, as you're suggesting, where, when I was running for president, people did not care as much about any of my ideas or thoughts on foreign policy matters. But it's a tragic situation. I'm glad it seems to be improving.
Yang, this mayoral race, as we started talking a second ago, has gotten a lot more aggressive. It's the most aggressive. I think I even heard you curse a few times, getting like your crowd hyped up, and so we've seen a side of you, I think, in this highly contentious race that I don't know if we've seen before. How does that feel for you? How does it feel to, be in this aggressive back and forth with a little bit of mudslinging going on? Because this is also new for you.
Ebro, I live in this city. I'm a public school parent. The fate of this city is truly at stake over this next week. Anyone listening to this, you can vote today, tomorrow, pretty much any day through next Tuesday. But I have a vision for what this city can be, what I'd like it to be, what I think a lot of people would like it to be. I have a very ambitious anti-poverty plan that's going to funnel billions of dollars in the hands of the neediest New Yorkers. I'm pumped because I see how badly wounded this city is, and I see how much I can help. I want this job in the worst way because of the impact that I'll be able to have on the lives of people and families who are struggling. And so if that comes across in some way, then I'm all for it. I'll if the future of New York City is at stake, I will do whatever is necessary to be in position to help improve our lives. This is something that I'm very passionate about because it's my family. It's, it's everyone's families. This city is in terrible shape right now. People are afraid to ride the subway, and, people are being attacked, like this mom in my community, or these people who were shot this weekend. And we have to turn it around. I mean, that's my mission. I'm on a mission. I'm glad it seems like I'm on a mission because I am.
Andrew, you always mention that you're a public school parent, and everyone talks about defunding the police, but we never hear the conversation about defunding public schools and how much help they still need. Like, I know of friends that are teachers and teachers' aid that are still we're struggling to get basic things like tablets and internet access to some of these neighborhoods. Now, as a public school parent, if you were to become mayor, what are your top 3 priorities when it comes to public schools?
Thanks, Laura. We have to do so much more for our schools. And like you just said, there are a lot of neighborhoods that have been totally left behind. I'm angry that schools have been closed as long as they have been. Online learning is no substitute. It's 30 to 70% less effective than in-person instruction. And 29% of New Yorkers don't have high-speed internet at home anyway. And that 29% is disproportionately Black and Latino. So if you think about the families we've been failing for the last year, it's the Black and Latino families of New York City whose kids go to public school.
Right.
So when you ask what my 3 top priorities, number 1 is we need to get kids back into school. As we're having this conversation, half or more of public school kids are not in the building. And school is not just book learning, it's socializing, it's extracurriculars, it's athletics. There are a lot of kids, mine included, who do not physically want to go back to school, but they're going to learn better at school. So we have to get them into school. So you say number one, my number one priority is to get kids back into school. We need to have social workers and counselors waiting for them to try and help them catch up. We need to have 10,000 tutors in there to help some of them recover from learning loss. Anyone listening to this, there is a Summer Rising program that's a combination summer camp, summer school that's available for your kids that might also be helpful, and it'll get your kids out of your hair for a lot of the day. So check that out. It's affordable, as in free. So there are things that we have to do, but number one is we just have to get the schools open to get the kids back in. Number two, I want to help empower principals to make decisions and investments and curricula and programming changes for their communities. No one knows better what's going on in that building than the principal, certainly not the DOE person who's miles and miles away. We have to let principals address what's going on in their school. As a public school parent, I think about the kid, my son. And then I think about the teacher, I think about the classroom, I think about the teacher's aide, I think about the staff, and then I think about the principal and the assistant principal. So those are the folks that are closest to my kid. The people in the DOE are not that close to my kid. You know what I mean? They're a ways away in an office building somewhere. So I want to empower the people that are closest to the schools. And then a bigger picture, I want to try to dramatically invest in vocational, apprenticeship, technical jobs. My first job was as a busboy at a Chinese restaurant. No one thinks of that as like a great job, but I learned a ton. I learned hard work and teamwork and customer service. We need to get kids into positions where they're actually working and getting that kind of structure. It's one reason why I want to more than double the summer youth employment program, because I just think kids getting that experience is vital.
Now, Andrew, do you plan on keeping the school chancellor, the black woman that just recently got the job, in your staff? Have you had a chance to meet with her, or is there any relationship there?
I have not met with her, but I've heard good things. I was certainly going to get rid of the person that preceded her. but
you didn't like Carranza?
I wasn't a Carranza fan.
Why?
But he lost the trust of a lot of parents, truthfully, and so it'd be very tough to stay in that position if that was a relationship with a lot of New Yorkers. But I have an open mind where the new chancellor is concerned. I'm not someone who's like, oh, we're going to come in and we're going to like if they're excellent people doing great work, I'm thrilled. And I want to build a team that's a combination of people who've been in agencies for a long time and know what the levers are, and then some people with some new energy and new ideas.
How do you fix the segregation problem, the economic and racial segregation problem? I mean, they're kind of tied, economy and race in our city. How do you fix that in our public schools? We have the most segregated public school system in America.
We have to dramatically invest in both our neighborhoods and communities and the public schools in particular. And we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to do that because of the federal relief money. I don't know if people recognize what has happened, but we've gotten $12 billion in federal aid, much of which needs to be spent in the next 2 years. And a lot of it has to be spent on schools. So the thing that scares me is that this time passes and this money is spent, and then we're looking up 3 years from now and are like, things are pretty much the same. So I want to try and invest that money in things that we know will stand up and address some of these inequities you're talking about, Ebro. So if it's physical infrastructure, I love it. Like that'll last for years. Even though the money is not supposed to be spent on that, I think we could spend it on that, especially because the money is supposed to be spent on COVID recovery. And so, that involves ventilation systems. And so you could say, well, I guess we have to do a lot of rebuilding, a lot of tabbing. And that would be positive. I mentioned the 10,000 tutors, most of which would be in Black and brown neighborhoods. I mentioned the $1,000 per family that's below the poverty line, which would be predominantly Black and brown. And that would be coming out of some of these relief funds. So we got like a very, very big opportunity here to do sustained good with the schools. And we have to take this opportunity because you don't get $12 billion in federal money every day. And I'm afraid that that Congress is going to switch hands in 22, and then we're obviously not going to see anything like this again.
Do you have a plan, or can you articulate a plan anyway? You talked about tutors, and one of the biggest problems with our schools is the specialized schools. Black and brown kids really don't get into those schools. It's mostly white and Asian. I think there's 7 or 8 of those kind of specialized high schools. A lot of people talk about the tutoring that wealthier families can get so that their kids can pass the test and get into these better schools. You have some schools like on the Upper West Side. I know you mentioned Carranza. I know a lot of you talked about the parents losing trust. I know there was a lot of blowback because him and de Blasio were trying to force children from poor neighborhoods into some of these better performing public schools. A lot of these public schools, they almost operate like private schools. You have to have a test to get into them. The way they've, I guess, gerrymandered the school district. They carve out areas where poorer kids can't get into the schools with some of the richer kids. Do you plan on addressing that kind of, the map of where schools, who goes to which schools, so that we can mix it up a little bit?
Yeah, I want our schools to better reflect our communities. And I think there are a number of ways we can do that. We should be having multiple ways of getting into various programs instead of the citywide testing regime. My wife grew up in Queens, and she remembers a teacher just putting her hand on her shoulder and being like, "Hey, we think you should be in this enrichment program." Maybe some of us are old enough to remember this stuff. Having a citywide test for some of these programs and then saying it's only available in that school over there. I think that's a terrible message. It's one reason why. Why I want to empower principals to be able to deliver more for kids in both directions. One of my older son is autistic and has special needs, so I want to do more for families in that dimension. But I think that we should be making it easier for kids to go to different schools and get the education they want in their current school. The current regime is very narrow. As you're suggesting, it often just is one test, which I don't think is the right approach.
A lot of blowback has come towards you, as Rosenberg asked earlier about you being framed, we thought, as a progressive, and now coming off a little bit more moderate. Even some people saying even leaning conservative with the way that you talk about police. Also, the support you get from billionaires and the tech space, which I think has kind of contributed to a lot of the blowback that you get, is because nobody trusts the billionaires. There's a lot of trust being lost for a lot of the big tech world in which you come from. What do you have to say to people who don't trust you because of that alignment?
When most people met me, I was like an anonymous Asian guy who ran for president, and no one thought it was a good idea. No matter what, no matter what your background was, no one was like, "Yeah, this is going to go places." I have friends in technology, yes, but a lot of them agreed with me that, hey, we're going to be automating away a lot of jobs. We should maybe start doing something big about that. Maybe start giving people money and, advance and evolve. I'm just a guy who wants to help. I'm not. One of the things that I do think is not great is that we've been separated into these political and ideological camps. Where when I first decided to run for president, I thought I was going to be presented as essentially left of Bernie, because even Bernie wasn't let's just start giving people money. And I had conversations with Bernie, and I was like, "Hey, Bernie, you come out for universal basic income." I supported Bernie in 2016. And so, when people, I voted for Cynthia Nixon. Just throwing that out there. But I'm a problem solver who just wants to make things better. And so if someone looks at my policies and approaches, I'm sure they'll find some things they like and some things they don't like. That to me is what you'd expect. I just hope that people recognize that, if someone decides to get behind me, half the time I've never met that person. I have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. I'm just sincerely trying to move New York City in a better direction.
Do you consider yourself a progressive?
I consider myself someone who, if my vision comes to pass, I'm going to improve the lives of millions of people, including and especially the neediest among us. I think that's very progressive.
Okay. Andrew Yang, ladies and gentlemen, in a very tight fight here for the job of mayor of New York City. Ranked choice voting and early voting. Remember, ranked choice voting is what you do it, is what you're doing, and early voting is going on right now. So get on out there, find your locations. What is it, Laura? NYC.vote.nyc.
Yeah, you could just, honestly, guys, just Google and you'll find the tools that you need. It's so important to make sure you guys go out and vote.
Andrew Yang, man, thanks for
Get
coming
out
back.
and vote, everyone. Let's go, New York City. You can rank up to 5 candidates. It's more fun voting this time, but I appreciate being here with you all. Let's go, New York.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye, everyone.
All right, take
Later,
care.
man.